The concept for The Crew sounds amazing. An open-world racing game that lets you drive across the entire United States, customizing your car and grouping with other players in an expansive MMORPG. However, in practice, The Crew falls flat in the execution and design of nearly every one of its promises. For context, The Crew follows the story of Alex Taylor, a driver working undercover for the FBI to infiltrate a nationwide gang of street racers to get revenge for his brother's murder. Alex is constantly trying to work his way up through the ranks without getting his cover blown, forging shaky relationships with gang leaders, and adding allies to his crew in each new region. The story is forgettable and really only serves as a setup for missions to lead you across the country. At times, these involve running from the cops, delivering stolen vehicles, or simply racing to establish your place in the hierarchy of this underworld. There's a laughable attempt to add meaning through missions that involve collecting shipments of contraband by smashing crates scattered across the countryside. However, the worst of the bunch are takedown missions, which have you following impossibly quick targets, trying to ram them until a life bar wears down. These are easier when playing with a group, but in general, they just amount to repeating a mission multiple times in frustration until you've memorized the AIs every turn.
Back off!
As you make your way across the country, you'll unlock specialized tuners for different types of driving. Tuning a vehicle to street or perf variants allows it to perform better on the road, while dirt and raid specs are ideal for driving across hills and plains. However, each event requires you to use a car from a specific class, or a loaner car, designated to that mission. And in the beginning, you'll find yourself regularly driving everything except the car you're trying to invest in. Since each mission automatically puts you in the best vehicle for the job, there's no real reason to buy more than one car for each class, and the selection is fairly limited as well, with less than 24 models in all. While The Crew has always presented itself as a game that lets you go deep under the hood, there's really nothing at all for grease monkeys to attach to. The handling of your vehicle is based on parts you unlock from each event with RPG-style stats. At no point does it benefit you to dig around and swap out an air filter or an ECU, you just bolt on new parts with higher numbers after each race. And because events are tied to your experience level, completing them can sometimes feel unrewarding as you win parts that are either too far above or below your current level to be of any use. This RPG design has a ripple effect on handling across the board. You start off with cars that feel stiff and unresponsive, and as you level up and earn higher level parts, driving begins to feel more manageable. That said, the handling never feels truly great and exhibits an awkward sense of inertia. Then, once you hit max level, you can start earning platinum level parts, which bestow huge boosts to your stats. And while this concept might work okay as you progress through single player missions, it absolutely destroys multiplayer. You can't help but feel powerless when you get into a race and see other drivers with cars rated 2 to 4 times higher than yours, watching them ride into the distance with no chance that you'll compete. And apparently that's been enough to scare off much of the community, as we had a hard time finding people willing to even try an 8-player race. The MMO ambitions of The Crew feel similarly pointless. Other players populate the world, and you can group up or take on story missions together, but it all feels incidental. There's no glue binding you together, inspiring you to form a team that cooperates over the long haul. Just random connections to keep you from feeling too lonely as you cross the vast expanse. On a broader level, there's a war between 5 factions to participate in for control of each region, but the system is wasted by flawed design. Since every player begins in the same faction and unlocks new factions sequentially throughout the course of the story, the starter faction ends up winning by default, and there's no incentive to switch to any others. Where the game stands somewhat firmer is in its vast open world. In case there's any confusion, it's nowhere near to scale, as you can race from San Francisco to Los Angeles in under 10 minutes, but the size is nonetheless impressive. Plus, you can fast travel to any point you've already been almost instantly. You'll get a headache from trying to make sense of the map's disfigured representation of the US, but there are a lot of interesting places to discover and routes to drive. Yes, the map is littered with some clutter like radio towers and rusting junkers to assemble, but there's a sense of surprise that comes when you happen across a unique curiosity tucked away in the miles of terrain. Amidst many landmarks, both famous and mundane, you might find a giant cow, an amusement park, local racetracks, or a pit mine running massive machinery.
What? The whole USA isn't big enough for you?
The sense of cruising across the countryside has a meditative quality to it, but to keep you from getting bored, there are numerous skill challenges dotting each route. Some of these task you with squeezing through gates, smashing targets, or maintaining speed, providing additional opportunities to earn parts and increase your car level on the way to your next mission. These minor tasks are more likely to compel you to retry for perfection than many of the main events. The game has a fair share of decent course layouts as you race through sequoia forests or over the Black Hills, and the size of its map allows for optional races that can go close to an hour or more without repeating scenery. It's just too bad that the dull driving model doesn't allow you to get more out of them. Also diminishing the experience are the subpar visuals. Just look at Niagara Falls. That's not impressive. Image quality is poor overall. There are intermittent performance issues, constant pop-in, and awkward animations in moments like takedowns. Despite the late timing of this review, glaring bugs are still noticeable. Most frequently, the game gets stuck on loading screens when beginning or ending missions, forcing you to quit and reboot. Plus, your FBI handler Zoe constantly nags you to get more XP.
Slow down, bud. You're not ready for this yet. Get more experience.
Even when you're over-leveled for upcoming events. We even had one incident where we were somehow paired with someone else's save file when we logged in, but thankfully, it was amended soon after. In all, the crew can be enjoyable for some casual cross-country joyrides, especially if you have some friends to drive along. However, it comes up entirely short of most of its goals, and makes a wreck of car handling and competition for the sake of lackluster MMO mechanics.